Welcome to our webinar today. For those that are new, welcome. My name is Becky Megas, she, her pronouns, and I'm the founder and chief care connector for Women in Sustainability. Women in Sustainability is an inclusive social and environmental justice nonprofit that is dedicated to caring for the people that care for the planet through community, advocacy, resources, and education to create a sustainable and equitable future through the feminist viewpoint and leadership. Women in Sustainability strives to create a safe space for like-minded and diverse individuals to create purposeful connections and conversations like we're having today. All are welcome in our community.
Thank you. Again, my name is Shannon Scalise. I am the co-owner of Hugorado Farms and the owner of Bokashi Financial Group. And throughout most of 2020 and 2021, I spent most of my waking hours focusing on launching one of Colorado's first regenerative and regional soil hubs. Many things did not go as planned with that project, but if anything, I think my passion for bringing soil health and gut health and planetary health into the light has only grown. So with that, I want to say thank you for being here. I want to introduce each of our panelists. I'm so grateful to these folks here. I'm going to start just who's on top of my screen. So Cass Posey is the owner of Cognitive Function, a mushroom tincture company out of Washington State. She's also the founder of Myceliate the Fest. If you are a fungi nerd, a mushroom nerd, a soil or plant health or farming nerd, any of those things, you will find your people at Myceliate the Fest. I know I sure did. And she is a wonderful leader. Next, Matt Powers. So Matt Powers has his own growing and large audience. He leads the Permaculture Student on YouTube, has lots of permaculture resources and tools and teachings, and also is, in my opinion, a pioneer on citizen science with new imaging techniques, new DNA techniques. He's pretty rad. And then Lindsey Parsons. Lindsey, I'm so stoked that you're here today. Lindsey is the host of the podcast called The Perfect Stool, Understanding and Healing the Gut Microbiome. And Lindsey has actually been a huge resource for me in my quest. A couple of months ago, almost a year ago now, I could tell that something was off with me, but I wasn't totally sure how to describe it. And you can't really go to a modern doctor and say, I don't feel quite right. They'll be like, well, okay, what do you want me to do with that? So I started researching the microbiome in the gut, and in trying to find resources to learn about the subject, it's not easy to come by until I found Lindsey's podcast. And I have been listening to her podcast many episodes. What's super cool about it is she's interviewing the top researchers on the cutting edge who are studying digestion and energy and the immune system and how it all originates or is connected with the gut. So Lindsey, thank you for being here today. And I think I'd like to begin kind of to set the stage. I know a lot of people are here because they're interested in the gut and how it's connected to everything else. And that's what you do, and that's your passion, and that's the people you work with. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've got into studying gut health and what kinds of problems you help people with?
Sure. Well, I got into gut health because of my own gut health issues. So many years ago, unbeknownst to me, was the sort of the germ of my gut health issues, which was food poisoning when I was living in Costa Rica. It's my own fault. I ate, mayonnaise that had been sitting basically warm for a day at least, if not more. And there was multiple episodes. In any case, that for many people is, unbeknownst to them, the beginning of gut health issues that can ultimately be called IBS. But I didn't know or put a name on it or even have a diagnosis until actually probably a year ago, when I took a test called IBS Smart, which basically tells you that you have an autoimmune problem where your body just keeps attacking its own cells that promote motility in the small intestine and keep things moving. It's called the migrating motor complex. After you finish eating, I think like 45 minutes later, the wave comes through in which your system starts moving all those bacteria out, because most of them belong in the large intestine. And if it doesn't do that, then you get this buildup in the small intestine called small intestine bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. And then you end up bloated, and every meal you eat, you bloat, and then, you have other issues downstream. And, it can be constipation, it can be diarrhea, it can be soft stool, but basically that's the sequence of events that happens when you end up with this condition. And I didn't, I saw a gastroenterologist, and they had no help to offer me at all. I mean, honestly, I didn't think what I had was a serious problem. And I wasn't like, some people who have IBS, they're in the bathroom 6-7 times a day with serious diarrhea. That was not my situation. It was much more benign seeming, but it ended up in autoimmune diseases over time, ended up with endometriosis, infertility, hormonal issues. I mean, the whole thing is connected. So it just spills over into your health in so many different ways. Long and short of it, I eventually got to the point where I was like, when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease attacking your thyroid gland, where I was like, something has to be done. I was told basically I'm supposed to sit here and wait until my body eats away its own thyroid gland, and then I have to permanently go on thyroid hormone for the rest of my life. And I'm like, that's insanity. I'm not going to just sit there and let that happen to me. And so that's when I really dug in and started researching and started hearing about fecal transplants. We can talk more about that later if you want to, but basically that was my first entry point of getting fascinated with the gut microbiome. But the idea that taking stool from one person essentially and putting it in another could heal them of all sorts of things. And this concept fascinated me for a while, but I ended up, getting into health coaching. And so, yeah, I work with people basically who have unexplained gut things. So ideally somebody who's already gone through the system, they've already had their colonoscopy, they've already had their endoscopy, they've already been told they either have IBS or IBD, like Crohn's or colitis, or some other thing, or they just have symptoms like bloating or, issues with their stool quality or reflux or diverticulitis or any of those gut things. And the traditional medical system has not solved their problem. And so I help them figure out what the root cause is through gut testing that your insurance doesn't pay for, and that is your gastroenterologist wouldn't even know how to interpret, that tells them what's going on in their gut microbiome at the level of bacteria and viruses and archaea and yeast and fungi and
neurotransmitters.
Yeah, well, and then there's organic acids testing, which can tell you about what's going on with your neurotransmitters. And then of course that's where you really see where it all fits together, because you can see where certain dysbiosis, or when the gut microbiome is off, and the microbiome being the ensemble of all of the DNA of the microbes living in your gut, when that's off, that can impact your neurotransmitters, because some of them produce metabolites, or things that after their digestion, what's left over is a metabolite. So that what's left over can impact your neurotransmitters, because most of your neurotransmitter activity is happening in the gut. 95% of your serotonin, or your feel-good hormone, is produced in the gut.
And I want to jump in there. So when I first sought you out and was like, hey, I want to work with you, I don't quite feel right. And I couldn't put it much more to words than that. When I got my organic acids test back, I could look on the paper and see that my neurotransmitters were way below the average population for dopamine and serotonin. And if I had gone to any other if I had approached any other modality of like, hey, I don't feel quite right, my neurotransmitters are low, which I didn't know at that point, they would say, okay, great, here's some antidepressants. And that historically for me has not put me in a place of health and balance. But through working with Lindsey, she really helped give me the precursors to those things and help heal the other areas of my gut, that I'm actually back to being good, which is fantastic. And it's how I'm able to do things like this. And Matt, so I'm curious, I was watching your thinking face go on, and I know from conversations with you that you're on the cutting edge of looking at how the soil life in the soil is actually evolving through horizontal gene transfer in the soils. And I kind of watched your thinking face go on as you were hearing about the gut health. So can you kind of share a little bit what horizontal gene transfer is within the soil, and then where that kind of leads you when you're hearing about gut health kind of stuff?
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you so much. That was so cool. I just sparked all these thoughts. So when I think about these things, I think about like some basic ground rules. So like microbes, they synthesize the vitamins. They create vitamins. That's why we often are using like Aspergillus niger to make, like vitamin C and citric acid and stuff. And because they make the actual vitamins, or they make the vitamins bioavailable and other things. They do both. And so just hearing this makes me think that we're missing key microbes in appropriate ratios and places. And then they need the right nutrients and feedstocks to do their cycles properly. But then, yeah, it's so fascinating because then you add in horizontal gene transfer.
Yeah.
And everything goes.
And can you explain horizontal
wild.
gene transfer? Because I think
Totally.
for me, it
So
was a new
I
subject
never
that blew
did
my
the
mind.
fecal transplant thing. I have Crohn's. I never did the transplant thing because I had read like early studies that some people didn't have issues. Some people didn't.
Did
go
you
so well,
did
and
you
then
end
people
up doing
died.
it, Lindsey?
I did.
You
You
did.
did?
Okay.
You're brave.
I just wanted to. Yeah, you are. I want to hear all about that, by the way. But
Well,
continue,
I
Matt.
mean,
I don't want to.
You saw that people died, right?
There were a couple people, I think maybe 3 people total have died because there was a pathogenic strain of E. coli, at least in one of the donors. And yeah, you should test for that
Let's talk
stuff.
about that. Let's talk about that.
You should
So
test for that stuff. I didn't.
Before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing though. How does pathogenicity express? Well, horizontal gene transfer gives us a very interesting window into this. They recently discovered that E. coli, and this is the example that they're using. E. coli is 30 to 40% of all samples of soil, all samples of compost. It's everywhere. Sometimes it's 50% of things. It's all over everything. It's the most common microbe. They found that through horizontal genes transfer, the genetics change and adapt faster than through reproduction. So horizontal gene transfer is things evolve faster. And so the traditional adapt to your environment, you reproduce evolution is now being outshined by how fast horizontal gene transfer works. And horizontal gene transfer is pretty wild because it crosses boundaries. So we all have bacteria and fungi within as an archaea too that are helping us digest our food. They're digesting it, and then we digest what they release. And just like this is the same exact thing that plants do. And so when our microbes encounter genes that are dead genes that are fragment, and 30 to 40% of the soil appears to be just dead fragments of DNA that's further breaking down, they eat it. And then they can literally choose to incorporate it and into their genome.
Which is
So when we say like the environment influences the microbes, yes, they literally are taking DNA and sourcing the past's history selectively as they move through it to express appropriately for the time they're in. So their food is influencing them through horizontal gene transfer. They're also conjugating. They're having sex. And they form these microphalluses and they spread. It's awfully concerning on one level, but this is what they do. And so that when you see under the microscope and they're going, that's what they're doing. They're being little rabbits. And every time they do that, they exchange DNA. So they're constantly every millisecond, like changing their DNA, and they're doing it. And the environment is influencing them. And so they're selectively re-encoding each other in this like lover's embrace that responds to the environment. Whoa. And then you have viruses. And we kind of all know viruses. They gunk up our DNA. But they also can change our DNA. And that's why we remember viruses and then can face them again, right? So there are modifications. And so this idea that the environment, the food substrate, the past, all these things influence the actual expression of the actual original bacteria and fungi. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so you have arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. It collects nuclei like a library and then just sources them whenever it wants and puts off little spores of different species according to the succession that it wants. It's like, okay, we don't have a way to figure out its ancestor. No one knows like how old it is because it's just taking up DNA from everything around
Just
it.
becomes what it wants to become.
Right. But it's also like responsible. It's very like ephemeral. It shows up for 3 to 2 weeks, sets things up and sets things in motion, then it's gone again. It's like, wow. It's like that marriage of mystery and meaning that humans really require for us to feel like we're human. We find it when we encounter horizontal gene transfer because it's an infinite. If the past is here, if there's always a constant modulation happening in response to the environment, and the microbes are choosing, and the plants are also having some choice too, and the gut microbiome has some choice, and the fact if we do our Wim Hof breathing or other breathing breath work, we can change the pH of our blood. We can change our digestion because of that. We can change the actual expression of the microbes. And that means that the same microbes can switch their genes up, dumping genes that they have. They're like, oh, this is not appropriate for the acidic environment. Matt's doing his Wim Hof. And then they take up the other genes. And this takes seconds. And this is why when we're doing our breath work or our yoga, we're like, or meditation, we're like, oh, I feel so good. And because all those microbes are like in alignment, they're like, I am in the state that's proper for this. And so that's what all came to me when you were talking.
Cool. And so Lindsey, so for me in thinking about how to kind of share the complexity of what's happening in the gut with our audience, I know some of the research that I've heard about the uniqueness of each person's biome and how even identical twins might only share 30% commonality in their gut biomes because their biomes are so different. What can you share with us about the uniqueness of each biome, or maybe even like how, if we're seeing unhealthy trends in the biome, what factors tend to go along with that? You share away.
Well, first, let me just follow up on what Matt said when he was talking about what's going on in the soil and the production of vitamins. So I just had a guest, Stasha Gomanak, who's a neurologist, talking about how she discovered her patients, they weren't sleeping. And so she figured out somehow, I don't know, some other source, that it was a vitamin D issue. And so once she got their vitamin D levels up to around 65, they started sleeping again and their insomnia went away. But then after a couple of years, they started coming back and saying, wait, I'm having these weird pains and other problems, and I've stopped sleeping again. And she realized that by feeding them the vitamin D, she was depleting their B vitamins because like D was a growth factor for the gut microbiome, but it was using up all the B vitamins. And so then brain exploding, right? So then she realized she had to replete them with bees, and it's just this whole story of how she went overboard on the bees. But because basically each phyla of the major 4 phyla in the gut, so you've got your Bacteroidetes, your Firmicutes, your Actinobacteria, and your Proteobacteria. Those are the 4 major phyla in the gut, and they each produce B vitamins, but not all the same ones, and they trade them amongst themselves. And so that's why you're only supposed to supplement all the Bs together. You're not supposed to just take one B vitamin because they're synergistic and they need each other and they exchange. And so it took repleting the Bs to restore the gut microbiome and get these people functional again. But that really was resonant with me when you were starting to talk about how they're interchanging vitamins and producing vitamins. Okay, now back to your question, which was about.
So really understanding the uniqueness of each person's biome. And
factors,
like, if we have power to influence our own biome.
Yeah.
I mentioned something, Wim Hof breathing, check it out. I've been experimenting with intermittent fasting. I know Cass healed some major gut issues through bone broths and all kinds of things. Talk to us about what influences our gut biome. If we're looking and saying, okay, wait a minute, there's allies in the soil, we can work with the soil to heal the soil and actually sequester carbon and grow more nutrient dense food. That's amazing. And also there's a community in our gut, and we can work with our gut to help heal ourselves and bring balance to ourselves.
Right.
How do we begin to think about that?
Right. Well, of course,
what are the factors?
Yeah. So of course your diet is going to impact what's in your gut microbiome for sure. If you're eating sugar and white flour and processed food and omega-6 fatty acids like in processed food and crappy seed oils and stuff, you're going to be feeding that pathogenic E. coli and that, all of the bad stuff. Basically, all of the pathogenic bacteria are going to go crazy. And then you're going to end up over time starting to have issues. So on the opposite end, if you're eating a whole foods diet and you're eating good sources of fiber, especially thinking beans and legumes, and a balanced diet, and you've provided enough of the nutrients your body needs, then everything should function properly until you have some sort of disrupting event, which could be I took a round of antibiotics, or you might also just start off bad, because some people, you're born via C-section, you don't get that. When babies are born, they're not just coming out through the vaginal microbiome. And for a while, they were thinking it was that contact with the vaginal microbiome that seeded the baby's microbiome in their gut. Well, now they're realizing it's actually the contact with the fecal matter, because most children are born face down and get a little bit of feces as they come out. So that's actually seeding the gut microbiome for a child born vaginally. And so that's the good start, right? And then you're getting ideally breastfed. And in breast milk, there is something called human milk oligosaccharides, which are not digestible by the human body. They are entirely to feed your gut microbiome. And in particular, there's a species of bacteria called Bifidobacterium infantis that is the primary bacteria for the first 6 months of life. And that feeds on those human milk oligosaccharides in the breast milk and starts to form the basis of your microbiome. Then, of course, you've got kids who are walking all over the floor and sticking everything in their mouth. And that's exactly what they're supposed to be doing, because they are, walking in the garden ideally and in the natural soils. And of course, on farms, they have much more diverse microbiomes and they're much healthier and fewer allergies and all these things. So, and the dogs coming in and out of the house, even better, that just gives them more opportunity to be exposed to microbes. And so that's how they're starting off with a good microbiome. Of course, if all of those things weren't true and you had, you were born by a C-section and your mom had antibiotics while you're being born, and then you had ear infections for the first 3 years of life and you were given piles of antibiotics and all of those things, then you're just starting off so impaired, and then you end up with these gut issues like I think Crohn's and colitis would be much more common in that kind of scenario where you've had an impaired microbiome from the beginning. But then so maybe you even had a good start, but then you took a round of antibiotics, or you had steroids, or you had a medication that messed with you, right, or you had a terrible diet, or all those things, and then you get disrupted. What do you do to refix that, right? Well, you figure out what's going on in the microbiome, and then maybe you have to kill some stuff. Maybe you have to take antimicrobials. So I recommend herbals to people, that herbal products that kill both bacteria and yeast, because otherwise you can end up with antibiotics. The problem is you kill off bacteria, but you don't kill the yeast. And so then people get overgrowth of candida, which is otherwise a normal, healthy resident of the gut that forms 3 to 5% of our gut microbiome. But if you just kill off with antibiotics, then you end up with problems. And then of course, do
you have specific herbs that you like to work with?
So I tend to look at the nutraceutical products that are combinations of herbs, but the things that go into them, you hear a lot about, like oregano oil or berberine,
golden seal.
Golden seal, caprylic
those are all
acid,
high antioxidants.
andesinoic acid. Yeah, those are a lot of sort of common products.
So those are super high in electrons. So all like the medicinal herbs that we call antioxidant, that's just code for high in energy, high in electrons, because oxidizing is the loss of electrons. It's the loss of energy.
Right.
And
I suspect that we are going to create microbial baths that have microbes that are specific. I mean, when Elaine explained to me that we're eventually not going to have soap, we're going to have microbe bars or microbe like washes.
Oh, they already have those.
Yeah.
But okay. But like instead of like cleaning ourselves, we think of reestablishing the right biome.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that would be clean in our new minds. And so I imagine we really could figure out what the biome is. And since Antoinette Marquez, one of my, I mean, she's like a personal like health mentor of mine. She's the founder of Honesty Beauty. 60% of what goes on your skin goes in.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about the baby getting, I mean, like, yeah, maybe the baby's mouth's open, but it's not like the baby's like feasting. No, it's like covering the baby. Everyone talking about it covering the baby and the whole body.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to think about the conversation as we've had in previous previous timelines of the world, right? Going back even in different eras where we look at, bleach, and we look at the way that things have to be clean. And like my Nona, my grandmother, her place is constantly spotless, and she wouldn't even have any sort of understanding of what we're talking about right now with, being able to bathe in microbes and all of that, and that being actually a beneficial way to be clean. And it's fascinating the way that we have had more of this modern kind of shift. And Matt and I were speaking about it yesterday, but we're starting to kind of take our power back and be able to have some of these deeper conversations that are able to kind of spark these concepts in people's minds of, oh yeah, that does make more sense. We're talking about the way that a baby is birthed and why that is a natural process that occurs, and that, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It makes complete sense. So I just think that that's a genius thing to think about. I think we've always kind of been taught multiple ways about cleanliness, and that's at least the way that I grew up. So it's a beautiful thing to think about, and what a business concept for a microbe, like a different type of soap or different ways that we're cleaning ourselves. And it's interesting. I also find the concept interesting of, we've pushed it so far now to that we're constantly hiding the smells of our body. Like, you don't know what somebody's sweat smells like because it's gross, right? But that's so strange because that's not normal. It's not normal to smell like a flower or a musky Axe deodorant spray scent. How do you even understand what someone's biome smells like to then have a deeper, intimate connection with them later on down the road? It's just really fascinating, right?
And
what were you going to say, man? Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Cass, I know you've given talks before about your journey with gut health and mental health. Could you share a little bit about what that was like and what your healing path was? Because it's very aligned with the conversation we're having today.
Yeah, and I also just want to shout out Nick in the audience, because he hopped on right away and has just been like ramping everybody the whole time. And it's just like, you guys have the cutest relationship. So I just love that.
He's pretty cool. I'd marry him again. He's
the best. Yeah. I'm in full support. So my journey has, what were you going to say, Matt? Are you good?
I just wanted to add to the whole like birthing thing. Like water births like are popular. What if we had the minerals like from seawater that we were able to add to that water? And so they came, the children came into this like mineral rich like environment. I think that would do incredible things, because talk about like microbes like making things bioavailable. It's like the microbes don't perform unless they have the foods and the minerals. The minerals are the electrical like keychain. So yeah, like seawater birth. But
okay, now there's going to be a group of Korean natural farmers
in the ocean.
Yeah,
who are getting
I'm like, put me in a tub of IMO and FHA and let's just OHN it up. Yeah.
No, for our audience that doesn't know, for our audience that does not know what IMO and FHA are, would you care to elaborate?
Yeah. Korean natural farming has a bunch of acronyms that make it really difficult for anybody to know what we're talking about, which I think is kind of part of the fun because it makes you want to learn. IMO is Indigenous Microorganisms. And Nick actually gifted me some. It's not over here because we've decided to move. I usually keep all my ferments over here, but we've now made it into a wet bar, which I guess is more fun, but I liked the ferments over here. And it is actually 70% of what we utilize in Korean natural farming to be able to keep our soils in balance, keep the microbes happy, and all of that. So it was an interesting concept because one of the inputs we use in Korean natural farming is actually seawater. So it's cool that Matt brought that up because it falls totally into a Korean natural farming concept. And I'm here to tell you, Matt, that I'd be down to get into a giant tub of inputs and see how the baby turns out. That might be a fun experiment.
And I also want to interject
yeah.
here. So when we started this conversation with Lindsey, kind of teasing a little bit about something called a fecal oral transplant, which is basically where you're helping transplant the biome from a hopefully healthy person where you've hopefully tested to make sure they're really healthy and have a good biome. And then you're moving their microbiome into another person. And that other person is now acquiring the status in a lot of ways of the donor. So if the donor, one of the episodes on our podcast, a woman self-healed herself of extreme bipolar and schizophrenia through a fecal oral transplant from a really healthy donor.
Microbiota transplant, to be clear, not
yes.
fecal oral.
Okay,
you can make capsules. It is possible, but most people do it the other route.
So essentially you're taking the stool from one and putting it into the stool of another and spreading the biome. But when in Korean natural farming and a lot of the soil health communities, that's the technique. It's the same thing. You're going into the forest, finding a really healthy part of the environment, taking a collection of the healthy soil biome, that's what is IMO, indigenous microorganism, that ideally you're looking at under the microscope to verify like, hey, this is a good sample. I don't have any major pathogens that I can see. This is a very diverse representative of this healthy ecosystem. You're then multiplying that out and then applying that to another ecosystem that needs help. So it's the same concept of what is healing some pretty amazing conditions in humans being applied to our lands. And when I think about this conversation and why it's so interesting, we're in a time where there's a pandemic, there's food shortages, there's droughts and fires and floods and stress, and we're trying to run businesses and maintain family relationships and friend relationships. And there's like a lot of signal. Like now in this moment in history, we are responsible for processing and navigating more information, like high throughput information constantly than any other time in history. And so for me, the reason this kind of conversation and this paradigm shift is so centering is because the soil is everywhere and the microbiome is us. We just haven't really grasped it yet. So if we can get to a place where it's more broad and common knowledge that, hey, microbiomes are our friend, germs, like there's actually beautiful biology going on. We don't need to sanitize everything, but we need to cultivate the good things and create good environments. To me, that's what's cool about this conversation. And that's why we're here today. So
and adding on to that too, I mean, I think that's why I was so intrigued with natural farming in the beginning, because all of the inputs are made in a way that is all human grade. So a lot of the inputs that I make to feed the soil are inputs that I'm also making to feed my biome, which is such a cool concept in itself. You can feed your soil, which is feeding your plant, right? We're not feeding the plant, we're feeding the soil. And we're able to actually have the same thing in ourselves. So what a cool concept and understanding. And it's a very intuitive process too. I want to go back because I do want to share a little bit of my story, just to maybe, shed light for some people in the audience. But the reason why I feel like they're so well connected is because in Korean natural farming, we're doing so many fermentation processes, and a lot of that has been lost within our culture now. And I think we're coming back with vengeance, and we're teaching people about how to make kraut, and I'm stoked on that. But it's been a funny gap that we've had in this history, and I think Michael Pollan said it. I don't remember when, but it's a quote that sometimes comes into my mind of the refrigerator was the greatest downfall of humanity. And the concept of it is that we stopped learning the art of preservation, and we stopped understanding what it means to actually, ferment and to cure and to eat in season, and all of these things that are just so intertwined, that I just absolutely am in love with that whole concept. So for those of you who don't know my story, I'll just give it quick and dirty. My name's Cassandra Posey. I was on pharmaceuticals from the age of about 7 to the age of 25 for ADHD, depression, and anxiety. It's been a really fun journey. I have tried every pharmaceutical out there for those diagnoses. I call them my superpowers. And so I've really been through the whole gamut of understanding a lot of what other people have gone through in their lives, because it's a very common approach, Western medicine approach. And so throughout that 25 or 17-year journey that I had, I really saw every specialist out there. I've been to any type of doctor that you can imagine. My mother is she's a saint because she tried everything under the sun. And so I have a really deep understanding of my brain and my body and my gut and all of that. And so when I got to the age of 25, I was like, here's the thing, Cass, this is killing you. You can't do it anymore. It's not sustainable. You're absolutely, with pharmaceuticals, they give you one, you get side effects, then you got to take 3 more. And so I was just getting to the point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's not it's not what's aligned personally. And also it's just not a sustainable approach to life. So I took myself off all of the pharmaceuticals, cold turkey. I was living in New York at the time. Rent was very high. And I said, I've got to do this to just figure it out. So it took me 19 days to actually get out of bed again and to actually start to live my life and try to get back on track. My adrenals, my body, my gut, everything was so low and having such a hard time. But I found Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride's work, Gut and Psychology Syndrome. If you guys haven't heard of her, I highly recommend looking into the GAPS diet. And I was vegan at the time that I found her work, and she kept talking about bone broth and healthy fats from animals. And I was like, I don't know about this, but I'm going to give it a try. I've done every diet out there. And if this is going to work for me, then, I'm going to just give it a try. So I fell in love with her work. I fell in love with Weston A. Price Foundation as a community of people who really focus on just trying to get the information out there. They're great. If you guys have never heard of them before, they send out a pamphlet, a quarterly pamphlet that talks about a bunch of stuff, which is cool. And they have a big conference coming up in October, and I will be there sponsoring the event with some of my products. So if you guys are in the area, come to that. So that was my journey, and it took a very long time. And I now talk about gut health as it pertains to mental health, because yes, I still have ADHD, depression, and anxiety, but we're at an area where we're able to manage symptoms, and we're not trying to constantly just throw something down and get rid of things. And I think that's, it's another thing in our society where we're kind of just told to deal with these things and get rid of them so that we can come to some sort of balance and be normal or whatever the heck. And I just did a whole talk at the festival that we put together called Myceliate, where really the baseline takeaway I thought was learn how to exist in your own mind and body, and let that be your freedom. Let that be the transition. Try to get out of the mindset of that programming of you have to be this way because this is how society needs you to be. Screw that. I started a business at the age of 25, and yes, I'm paying my bills with it, and I get to talk to you fine people and put on a festival for all my friends every year. That's freedom, right? So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about gut health. And I'm down to talk to anybody about the GAPS diet at any time of the day. You can shoot me a message. I'm actually gearing up to go through it again with my partner in the next month or so, because I'm feeling like I really need a reset again. And it is something that protocol has stages. And once you get to about stage 4, you're really in a space in your life where moderation isn't as big of a stressor. You've gotten to a place where you've opened up a multitude of foods. And so long as you're, lower on the refined sugar and the gluten aspects of things, you're really able to thrive. And it's not a restricting diet in that regard. It's really about rebuilding so that you're able to get to a space where, you have more infinite possibility, and getting out of these hard and difficult days where you can't get out of bed and you're feeling sluggish and depressed and, the brain fog and all of this. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing. And Lindsey or Matt, I saw both of you have responses and ideas. Anything jumping to mind for sharing?
I'll just say briefly, I tried to get the GAPS diet creator on the show, and she sort of responded, but then didn't come up. But in any case, there are a lot of diets out there, right? So there's low FODMAPs for SIBO. There is 4 other variations of that different people create that are, more or less strict, or, add like specific carbohydrate diet, or there's the biphasic diet. There is low flex diet, which is for Crohn's in particular. There is just trying to think, of course, there's paleo, there's autoimmune paleo for people who have autoimmune diseases. So there's a lot of dietary solutions out there. And, just my only thought is just to be careful with those things, these are not meant to be, well, I should say, some of the more restrictive ones are not meant to be like lifelong things. Like if you have SIBO, you don't have to eat low FODMAPs for the rest of your life.
Right.
And the GAPS diet, I assume, starts low and then it expands. And the main thing is that you want to get back to a place where you're able to eat most foods. Now, there are a couple things like, for me, gluten and dairy, they're just always going to be occasional traits. Like those are foods that bother a lot of people.
Yeah.
And in particular, I know genetically, I do not have the gene for lactase persistence, which means I do not have the enzyme that digests lactose. That being said, some people manage to digest it till the end of their lives because they just keep eating it and the microbes keep helping them digest it. I stopped eating it, and so now I really can't eat it. But yeah, it's the main thing is that if you do try a diet and it does help you, that you get to the point where you start expanding back to a wider diet, because you will probably be missing some nutrients if you don't do that. At some point, and in particular, you mentioned a vegan diet, like it's really hard to get enough amino acids to support your body on a vegan diet. There's just no way around it.
Yeah. And I mean, I also am under the school of thought that if you want to make somebody allergic to something, tell them to only eat that thing forever. It's a terrible idea. We need a vast amount of different, it's like you have to microdose everything. So that sometimes I eat a burger from Burger Master. Like you have to just get your body sometimes to just have an understanding of a little bit of everything. And I really believe that mentally too, it's part of that restriction that starts to consume your mind. And then you start to believe these other things that can be unhealthy. And half of the battle is what your mind is telling your stomach to believe as well. I used to have a peanut allergy. And I started microdosing peanuts because I just was obsessed with biohacking at a very young age, because why not? They were experimenting everything else on me. Might as well have some fun for myself. But peanuts, I started microdosing and am able to now eat peanuts no problem, you know. So it's interesting, and I'm not saying if you have a peanut allergy, do this. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. But yeah, it's just fascinating that we are able to program our bodies in different ways. Yeah.
Matt, you're
Yeah.
like jumping off your chair.
Yeah.
Share,
Yeah.
what is it?
Okay, so all these things can work, but if you've got leaky gut, like, you know, and I know that's a colloquial term and all, but you have what happened to me, where you progressively lost your whole diet. So I became allergic to everything except meat.
Weird.
Because before that, I didn't eat meat. I was vegan and
Right,
vegetarian for many
right.
years, and I couldn't digest meat. It was painful. It felt like we were like running sandpaper through me. It was awful.
Right.
It was nuts. I would lay down and just like whimper. That was hell. And so I just didn't eat meat. I was like, I'm not gonna do that. Like on tour too, like I was a touring musician, and so it's like I can't take that risk. I was eating bowls of pasta, and everyone else is having steak and be like, Matt, you sure? It's like Rachel Ray's husband, you know what I mean? Like I could eat whatever I wanted. And like I was eating pasta being like, yeah, I'm fine. You know, meanwhile, like causing my whole bloating issue to go crazy too. So I remember seeing like I'm so hyper allergic to like fruits that I loved and like all grains, especially like sesame seeds, all seeds. Like it was so brutal. I did the whole blood panel thing on like what you're allergic to. But if you have leaky gut, what happens is there's like your gut's like 1 to 2 cells thick. And so it's like your stuff goes right into your blood and your food. And your body's like, what is this doing in here? These are foreign proteins. And then it identifies them as a foreign thing that's not supposed to be here. And so you become allergic to it. And so I became allergic to
feels
everything.
like I had that, and Lindsey is actually helping me recover. And like every time I was eating, I would basically have brain fog. And so through the process of really focusing on healing the gut lining and supporting the other parts of my particular biome, like that's how I've regained some balance. And so if you're in the audience and you're like, I get really tired every time after I eat, like ding, 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 that might be something worth looking into.
Right.
Yep.
And so I'm stuck on meat, and like now meat, like sometimes certain meats like make me tired.
Yeah.
And so it's like, unless you fix your gut, like you have a shrinking like path or like place to stand. And I don't like reveal this stuff usually to people because it's like
Personal.
You know, it's like it's so personal, and it's also like it's what tortures my wife, actually.
Yeah.
Like it's like what she stays up all night worried about is like Matt looks skinny. Matt's losing weight again. And so this is all like really hard. And the number one thing I've learned is it's like you need to figure out what is the breakthrough. And I know there's all these diets, there's all these different things, but what is the breakthrough for you? Because you need a breakthrough.
Yeah.
If you're like me or like Cassandra or like it sounds like Shannon and maybe more of you out there, you need a breakthrough. And like the lactic acid bacteria liquid from Korean natural farming, people are using that to treat Crohn's.
Have you been using labs?
I'm
Have you been
preparing
using
a
it?
bunch right now.
Oh, good. I can't wait to see how you do. It is game changer.
Okay,
and for the audience that doesn't know
what
labs are an air harvested lactobacillus mix where you're pulling the bacteria straight out of the air. So you're getting a lot of variety of what's around you, multiplying it out. And then they're actually, they're little digesters. So in farming, in Korean natural farming, they'll actually use labs in like chicken coops and pig pens because they digest the smell. Some people use it as like deodorant because it digests the smell of the body. And also people are using it in their guts because it digests the things that they can't and breaks stuff down for them. So that's kind of like a quick primer on labs.
Yeah, you're basically making cheese, and then it's the liquid. So it again goes right back to that idea that like if we were all doing this ourselves, like the way our great grandmothers did, we would have a completely different biome, gut biome, skin biome, all of it. So
And getting sun.
yeah,
Yeah.
Actually,
forming our vitamin D naturally. That was
yes,
the other-
I want
other missing
to
piece.
share a question from the audience that just came through chat from Melanie. Thank you, Melanie, for this question. She says, historically, we're seeing a big increase in autoimmune issues and mental health issues. And the question is that due to depletion of the soil? The next question is, how do we combat this with the industrialized farming lobby and power? I see this happening perhaps on a local level, but curious to know your thoughts about how to get more involved. And I have things to share, but y'all share first.
Commercial, big industrial farming has screwed us. Period. 80%
of the pharmaceutical industry's products goes to the agricultural industry. The
It's
remaining
just such a
20%
joke.
goes to the medical industry.
It's such a joke. I went up to my mom when I was 12 years old and I said, I'm allergic to wheat. And she was like, okay. And I said, but it's not the wheat. It's what they're spraying on it. And she's like, okay, baby, whatever you say, I don't understand. But I knew just intuitively at a young age, I'm like, this is wrong. Did not grow up on a farm, had no understanding the gravity of what I was saying at the age of 12, but I won't forget it because of how serious it was to me at the time. And I truly, truly believe that the reason why we're seeing so many issues is, yes, the soil, and this is going to be a controversial statement, so you guys can take it or leave it, and you're open to your own choice and your own decisions, but birth control is screwing us. Seed oils are totally screwing us. In my personal opinion, that's my experience. And I just think that we've gotten to a place where we're getting so far out of human that we're not understanding what that we haven't evolved enough to be able to digest a bag of Doritos. We don't understand that. Our bodies don't understand. They don't compute that. I think to look positively, and then I'm interested in what everybody else has to say, but in my opinion, to look positively, when people come up to me and they say, what can I do for my gut health? I say, where's your farmer's market? What day is it? Can you go there? Can you support your local farmers? Can you learn about what their practices are? Can you get excited with them, and can you support them? Because the more we can do that, the more we're building our own ecosystem, right? And we're getting everybody together and we're eating seasonally again. And we're starting to understand what it means to eat a carrot that was grown in soil that's 35 miles away from where my soil is. That's huge. So that would be my add to that. Sorry, I got really excited and I'm like sweating a little bit.
I think many of us are.
Yeah, so that's my biggest suggestion to people is really understanding what it means to support local, because you're not just supporting with helping your body, you're supporting with your dollars. And I rather support my farmer than my doctor any day of the week.
Lindsey, do you want to jump in?
Well, I did that. What she just said made me think about my motto, which is I'd rather spend my money on food than on healthcare.
Yes.
And so I will pay $8 for a pound of pasture raised butter over spending, $5 for crappy white butter that has no vitamins and nutrients in it. But it's interesting because I was actually, before I became a health coach, I was involved in the healthy school food movement and started an organization called Real Food for Kids
Cool.
Montgomery and Healthy School Food Maryland in the state of Maryland, and tried to get farm to table programs going and salad bars and all that. But these big institutional buyers, they can move the needle. But I mean, just sort of, to follow on what you're saying about farmers markets, like terms to Google, like community supported agriculture. If you want to get a box of produce and maybe share it with a neighbor so you aren't eating 1,000 pounds of collard greens all winter, but doing that over the course of a year, or look for pasture raised meats. Like for me, that's really important, because you're talking about the top of the food chain there when you're talking about meat. So that's what I really will spend on. I will find a local farm. And I did here in Arizona. There's not a lot of agriculture in Arizona because it's a desert, but I did find a place called Chiricahua Pasture Raised Meats. And it's every 6 weeks I go and I pick up my meat. And, you're not going to get those fancy cuts and those fancy whatever. Mostly I'm eating ground meats and stuff, but it's local and it's pasture raised, and your omega-3 fatty acids are going to be higher, which are anti-inflammatory. And so, those are just some things that I do personally. And consumers are asking for more and more organic foods. So as they do that, the system has to change with it. So it's a supply and demand question. So slowly but surely the system will change. Obviously there's political ways you can fight this, but I'll tell you what, it's a bear.
That is a bear. That is definitely a bear. And I want to jump in because as I know a lot of people in this webinar are based in Colorado. I know we have people from all over, but it's very Colorado centric. And so within Colorado, there's actually the Healthy Soils campaign, which is launching in partnership with the Colorado Department of Agriculture and Zero Foodprint. Zero Foodprint is an amazing, amazing program. The short of it is that we're creatively funding regenerative farming projects for local Coloradan farmers so that they can launch regenerative practices on their farms and have the funding to help them do it. Funding is distributed based on the likelihood and the potential to sequester the most carbon with the projects that they're doing. So that's an amazing program. It's called Zero Foodprint. My company, Bokashi Financial Group, is a Zero Foodprint company. So a percentage of all of the revenue that we make goes directly to Coloradan farmers. So if you're like, hey, I want to get involved, I want to support this change and this shift, but I do X, Y, and Z, and somehow I don't feel connected to it. Like all of us are connected. All of us can, even if we live in an apartment, or in my case, I live in a van, you can actually do Bokashi Composting, which I think Matt would be a good person to explain a little bit more about what that is. You can get involved in organizations like Zero Foodprint. Within Colorado, there's also the Regenerative Recovery Coalition. I led the working group for sustainable food systems and agriculture for about a year. So there's a lot of momentum going on. There's also Mile High Farmers. They're based out of Denver, and they're all urban farmers. There's a couple members that are large scale farmers, but it's a lot of urban farmers. So if you're in the Colorado community and you want to get involved, there's lots of ways to do it. I'm happy to link you in wherever is interesting. And Matt, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the soil, because we've been talking a lot about the gut.
I was going to answer that question.
Yes.
Melanie's question.
Yes.
I just want to let everyone go first. So the thing is, there's a few different things. There is that long 50-year study that was put out in the early aughts that showed that, like in dairy, it's up to 90% deficient. Compare like it's lost 90%. It's a nutritional value, and things that like range from 30% to 90%, depending on what we're talking about specifically. So you'll find like, I'm just gonna make it up, like something like broccoli is 37%, right? But everything has slid. There's nothing that's maintained under their regime. And so we do have a situation where unequivocally we know that their way of doing it is stripping the minerals out of the soil and thus the food. And we also know that minerals are incredibly important to our brains, that for the purpose that minerals serve, every mineral has a different electrical charge on the outside of it. And we need certain amounts of those charges and of each kind of those charges to make the cycles in our bodies work. And so our food not having those things would lead to breakdowns in our bodies, would lead to our bodies being deficient. And and I think autoimmune disease is definitely a part of that, but I don't want to close the door on all those things, because there's, I mean, leaded gas was responsible for so much violence they discovered, because as they took it out, they saw all of the violence like just go lower and lower. And then so we know that there's other factors. So I don't want to like rule out anything else. I want to keep that door open because it is compounding, and we don't want to let any of those people off the hook, because there's so many bad actors that are knowingly doing things that are harming people, and they don't care. It's like the radon girls. That, if you guys don't know about the radon girls, they'll do that to us again in a heartbeat. To our girls, our daughters, and our sisters and our mothers, they're going to do that to them. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is it's like they don't have, the people that are doing this, they don't have that kind of like we're talking about being human and compassion and all these things. They're lacking in that. And that's what's so hysterically scary about when those people get into positions of power, because they do these things. And it feels like we're in a time period again where people are doing things that are attacking innocence in a systematic way, and it's just like rolling forward. It's just in the water, the food, etc. You know what I mean? And yeah, I'm talking about a whole panoply of things.
System.
Yeah, it's like our waters have persistent chemicals. They call them forever chemicals, yet they figured out that soap and water takes care of PFAS. How does that happen, that they have to figure that out now after declaring it's a forever chemical? I don't know. But my point is that we actually can point to mineral imbalances and losses in the body being related to mental issues, and we always have. If you look at thalassotherapy, which is what my mentor practices, which is bathing in seawater, this is why Bath was a place that people went for to get healed. And so and this is an old tradition in Europe. I mean, people would go to mineral baths because they wanted the health like responses, and they would drink the mineral waters for the same exact reasons. So we do know that they're linked. But if you think about what Roundup, glyphosate does, it's a mineral chelator. So if you have that in your gut or being produced by microbes in your gut, because that can happen, you actually have this process of chelating all the minerals out of your food and making it so that you can't like get access to these things, and you're always peeing out things and you're not being able to retain. I mean, my biggest problem is that I can't pull the nutrition out of my food very well. I have a malabsorption issue. And so
that used to be me, really hard at coming off of all the pharmaceuticals.
I need to do some more like slow cooked meat. Like I'm always
meat
in a rush.
stock, Matt. Meat stock.
There you go. So yeah, no, to combat it, we have to choose with our dollars and DIY. The reality is no one's going to do the work. You're not going to be able to pay people to do the work to make you real water kefir or to make you real lactic acid bacteria. You'll get some bottled fake stuff maybe in a couple years at a grocery store, and it'll be fake. They'll just be trying to like capitalize off of all of the insights that we're talking about here. And that's really like the reality is, it's like no one can meditate for you.
Right.
It's the same thing with your food. There's a calibration and a feedback loop between the microbes, between your skin, between everything involved. That's that's why like the whole wearing masks thing like fell apart, because they're like, oh, well, the actual size of like the filter compared to the actual virus. It's like the same thing with everything. It's like you're making that, you're in that water kefir has you in it. And so like it's expressing and responding, and that beautiful mystery and relationship is, I think, where we're going to find the solution out of this dark place that we're in, because it has that beautiful mystery, because we need that as humans. We need that unknown to have faith in, because faith is directly linked to creativity. It's a muscle. And so having that knowing that placebo effect play out, being like, I'm going to meditate on that is going to be the best thing possible. Those two things together will bring us out of that and choosing with their dollars. But yeah, they're going to try their darndest. And I think that the lucky thing is the more they try, the more obvious they are. I mean, how garish is politics today? They're trying so hard. And you're like, really? Like,
well, I also think too, though, like for Nick and I, like we have really restructured our lives around supporting healthy soils. And so that's taken us down a very interesting road. We were working, like where my head was at it was like, this work needs to happen for specifically talking about soil health and rebuilding the soil's potential to take care of the plants, and to sequester carbon and to filter water and to just cultivate the whole forest. Like that has to happen. There's no other way around it. So we really focus now on supporting that. And it's taken us a lot of different directions. But if you're in that boat of like, I guess the point I'm trying to make is every single person on the entire planet can be involved in healing the soil. Every single one, from a kid in India to a woman in Pakistan, to a farmer in China, to a house mom in Colorado. Like all of us can participate in that act of healing the soil. And so if that's the journey you're curious about going on, there's a lot of really cool resources. Matt actually runs an organization and has a ton of resources about how to get involved. And there's lots of ways to kind of plug in and start learning about soil health and through soil
And come
health.
to my celiate. Woo!
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to connect to something first. So Lindsey's work is like that connection that we're talking about right here, right now. Because I'm like, we need to fix the soil and the food, because then we can choose wisely and then have that gut wisdom and alchemy happen so that our actual humanure is at a level that it's a blessing.
Right.
And then with using the resources that are in Korean natural farming that Cassandra is talking about, then we have the insights how we can change everything that we create waste-wise into a food. And then everything becomes a blessing. Everything becomes this virtuous cycle. That's the Edo period Japan. The virtuous cycles so many of these concepts come from that time period. That's where permaculture got a lot of its inspiration. And so when we do that, we become the heroes in the story. We become the facilitators of greatness and benefit and positivity in the world. And it's like, that's what we're meant to be. And so by not getting our hands into the dirt, by not digesting these things with microbes and doing all this like hands-on work, we're denying ourselves the greatest opportunity for expression. So I'm going to be checking out Lindsey's work. I'm so excited for that. And Cassandra and I are always talking about all these things as well. So yeah, it all connects.
Yeah, to all the nerds in the audience, like the conversations Lindsey has on her podcast with her guests about the very cutting edge of what we're learning about the microbiome, it's amazing. Thank you, Lindsey, for creating that podcast. I know we are nearing the end. We've got about 15 minutes left. This has been a really interesting conversation, and I feel like there are so many directions it could go and can continue to evolve. Is there anyone in the audience that has a question? And if not, we'll keep on talking. But if there's something that we didn't talk through that you want to hear more about, like now is your moment.
I'm going to go back to the beginning, Shannon. We have a question that came out at the start asking about probiotics. If they suggest taking enzymes or probiotics.
That's a Lindsey answer.
Okay, so it depends, I guess is my answer. So digestive enzymes, I think are generally beneficial to people who are short on digestive enzymes and who do not have ulcers. That's the primary contraindication, I think, is an ulcer, because then it can eat through your stomach wall and kill you. So
no biggie.
No one ever told me that.
Yeah. So if you are deficient in, so there's a marker on lab tests, and you can get regular lab tests probably, but the more expensive ones have it too, pancreatic elastase, which will tell you how much in stool, how much you are producing from your pancreas that's helping digest your food. And if that's low, then you probably should be taking enzymes to help. And often people who have gut infections and who have disturbed gut microbiomes and who have autoimmune issues and the kinds of things, mental health issues that would signify that you have something wrong in your gut, or the obvious gut health signs, you probably have some issues there, but not everybody does. Now, I see the lab tests, so probably only 30% of the people actually have low pancreatic elastase. Probiotics is a different question. So actual probiotics as pills, it depends. Like, so there was a big study that came out saying that actually taking probiotics after antibiotics made it take way longer, like 6 months longer, for your microbiome to go back to where it was. Most of the people I deal with, however, do not have a microbiome that is where it's supposed to be. So, if your microbiome is messed up and your gut is messed up to begin with, then probiotics may very well be helpful. There's actually something called butyrate that I would recommend that people take with antibiotics instead, the tributrin form. I see you're showing me. What are you showing there? In the picture?
Do you know about EM?
No.
Okay, so this is Lactobacillus plantarum, Lactobacillus casei, Lactobacillus bulgaricaris, Lactobacillus fermentum, and Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and Rhodosodomonas palustris.
You're muted.
You never heard of this?
You're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was being distracted by this other person who's talking and doesn't realize they're.
Actually, unmute.
Sorry. I have heard of products like that. There was one strain that was unusual. Rhodid.
That's a purple non-sulfur bacteria. It feeds 4 different ways.
Okay.
Yes, it's
yeah. I haven't heard of that particular one.
Well, the wild thing about it is, if you want another, if I was going to look for another source of that microbe other than this, I'd have to pay $500. So it's pretty wild that we can buy it for 40.
Yeah. Well, there's what's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
So this is what people are taking to support their gut. They are microbes that live in our digestion, that are found in soil and in compost and inside plants.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a full loop, a full feedback loop of microbes. Just like rhizobia, people like got to inoculate your beans so they nodulate. That is actually in all the ruminants' digestion. It survives through even hot composting. So there's these feedback microbes and microbe families that horizontal gene transfer their way through the digestion and then all the other cycles. So this is a group of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's also beyond that, there's so many different types of probiotics, right? So you have your lacto-bifido ones, which are the historical ones that have come from food. But bifido are, as I said, like that strain of Bifidobacteria infantis is the first strain that colonizes our gut. So bifida are native to the gut. It's argued that the lacto are probably more coming from food, but in a typical gut profile for an American, you'd want to see some lacto in there. And all those have been reclassified, by the way. They all have new names, but I won't worry about that at the moment. Then there's some streptococcus strains also that are in some of those standard mixes. Then you have these new strains that are anaerobic that are coming out. So there's a company called Pendulum that's put out Akkermansia muciniphila, and these are starting to alter people's blood sugar, right? They've got one called glucose control. So it changes the microbes, drops your hemoglobin A1C by 0.6. That's what their study showed. And that could take you from diabetic to not diabetic, or pre-diabetic to not pre-diabetic, right? So that's just changing your gut microbes. They just put out one that's a Clostridium, which produces butyrate. It's Clostridia butyricum or something like that. And it's called GI Repair. So I can put up a link for that in a minute. But so that company is doing some really original stuff, because it's not easy to produce anaerobic bacteria and put them in a pill. And they're doing that. And then you've got, of course, Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a beneficial yeast, which I think you mentioned was in that bottle you had there. And
Matt, was that EM? Was that like you purchased that EM?
Yeah, this EM. This is Pro EM1. This is it's organic. It's CCOF. You can drink it.
You're drinking that?
Yeah.
I should try it. I wonder if it's good.
Yeah, I would think though that if we were doing lab,
Yeah, because I like
and
labs. It's easy to do. It's cheap.
if we spiked it with blue spirulina, like Steve Reisner said
Mhm.
to make it
Oh,
super labs, it would have the
Yeah.
purple non-sulfur bacteria in it.
yeah.
We just haven't
I love
figured
that
out
idea.
where it's coming in from, whether it's inside the substrate or if it's in the air and it's being triggered, or horizontal gene transfer expression.
I
But-
like this concept of us
just came in.
being able to make our own medicines in this way, because it's like when you're making bread, right? Sourdough. Your biome is a part of that loaf that you're now baking, making it a little bit more suited for your body type. And so I just think that there's such a concept here with trying to make something like labs. And if you guys want to learn more about that, get in touch with me or Nick or even Shannon, and we'd all be more than, happy to talk about it. Chris Trump's probably got a video on it on YouTube. But that's cheap 99. Like, you don't need to spend hardly any money to do that. You'll learn a new skill and it'll be suited for your body. So just something to think about. I find that a lot of the probiotics on the market, and I have tried 99 of them %. I don't necessarily always feel like there's a positive exchange with it, or sometimes I get a huge upset stomach, which is very strange. But just something to think about. We can take back a lot of this. We don't need somebody to tell us to take a pill. We can make it ourselves, or put it, ferment more and do these other things to be able to actually be our own medicine. So something to think about.
Yeah, so reishi, I was thinking about reishi recently as something that we take in. They discovered this bacteria in Japan in one of the blue stones in all the guts of all these people over 100 years old in their stool. They discovered this odorobacter is, I think, the way to say it. It is only, like, from the research that I can find, only created in the gut when you eat reishi mushrooms.
Cool.
And so it's like, whoa, okay. So
Yeah.
the mushroom of like immortality, you know what I mean? Like,
real. Yeah.
happens to be in all the people's,
Yeah.
but it's
Who
that
is it?
precursor, that food that creates the
Yeah.
microbe
I'll look and
expression
see.
that is so critical. And I think the horizontal gene transfer mixture there of like, there's genes that are potentially influencing as they break down, these genetic chunks are then triggering the microbes to re-express, or they're carrying microbes from in that substrate. But I don't know if they're truly, I think it's really the case that we trigger everything with our environment, and it really looks like we have things cross species very quickly in expression, and it looks like magic, but it's because it's moving so fast and they're just picking up and dropping genes that is happening. So
I do want to jump in because we're within our last 5 minutes and I want to be respectful of people that have to jump off. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked through our own experiences on our own mental health and gut health journey. We've talked a little bit about soil health. We've gotten into the details of starting to understand how you even wrap your mind around gut health and where to begin. I want to reiterate again for anybody in the audience that wants to connect. Cass is the founder of Myceliate the Fest. It's an amazing event. This past August, September was the first one. Next one will be next fall. Come join us in Washington for that. Matt Powers runs a regenerative soil and citizen science movement, really, and helps give people skills on the microscope and how to really look at their soils and get involved. And then Lindsey works with people who are seeking gut health guidance on how to understand and heal their microbiome. And her podcast is The Bomb Diggity. Again, that one is called The Perfect Stool, Understanding and Healing Your Gut Microbiome. So that
Love the name.
Yes. So those are our panelists. I know that we want to wrap up. I know Lindsey has Becky has a question that she likes to end each panel with. So Becky, you are welcome to jump in and share your question.
Yeah, I just want to first say thank you to, again, Shannon, for bringing this topic to women in sustainability and for organizing today's panel. Thank you for all of you for joining. I never knew there'd be so many people so excited about talking about fecal matter, and here we are, and it's amazing. And like Matt's face the entire time has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Really appreciate the passion, because we are about passion, right? Like people have to be passionate talking about these very taboo topics. And I really appreciate you sharing that passion and your expertise with us today. And we always love to ask our panelists, what do you see for the future of sustainability? And that can be regarding soil health, gut health, mental health, or anything that you want. But what do you, looking into this crystal ball, what do you see? And Shannon, I'd love for you to answer that question as well.
I'll go first. I see, so my company, Bokashi Financial Group, we exist in order to support businesses that seek to drive positive change. And so what I see as the future of sustainability is every single person in business and in life finding ways to put more than just profit on the bottom line. I mean, people, planet, community, social equity, like all of that is the future. And it's us being creative about how we do it and how we do business and saying, hey, there's more to this than just profit. Profit is definitely foundational and important, but there's a lot more that we can be doing with our organizations and with our communities. And I know we have like 3 minutes left. So that's my short answer is, leaders in the community are going to drive the change, and then the community is going to grow. And any of you three can follow up.
Yep, jump in.
We have like 2 minutes left.
Okay. I'll just grab it. I think the future is the past. And I think that in order to be able to come up with these more regenerative approaches, what we need to do is take a tip from our past lives that have been lived here on this planet and really bring those processes back into these direct ecosystems. I love the word ecosystem, right? Because it is all encompassing, but it's also small encompassing. So it can be just you, but it can also be this whole ecosystem that you're creating outside of yourself, which is a whole ecosystem in itself to inoculate tons of minds outside of that. My big focus in sustainability is really putting the hands or putting all the resources in the hands of anybody who has a passion to run with these things. I'm just going to talk about my celiate for half a second, but the tagline we came up with this year was cultivating collective abundance. And really what that meant for us was, how can we just get a bunch of friends and cool family and members of the community to come together in one place and share skills, share knowledge, and break bread and have a real meal together. It is my insane, what's the word I'm looking for, accomplishment to say that we fed 250 people pasture raised beyond organic meals 3 times a day for the entire duration of the festival. If that's the work that, like, I could die tomorrow about it. I'm so stoked because of how well nourished people's bodies were. Their minds were able to be well nourished, and the capability that is so much more, it runs so much deeper, you know, to be able to do something like that. So I think the future is really, you know, putting these systems together. And also one other thing, not forgetting the children. All children under the age of 11 got into our festival for free. This past year, we're doing that again for as many years as we can afford to continue to do this and bring it together. Because, you know, introing kids into understanding the things that we are now realizing as adults, God, can you just imagine where we'd be if we knew all this stuff back then? It's just incredible. So that's the goal that I have. If any of this is inspiring to you at all, please come out to the festival. We're also trying to put Discord channel together where anybody that's involved in any sort of agriculture or mushroom scope, you guys can add and put your events in there and promote yourselves as well. So that's huge. And the other one thing I was going to say is if you are looking for farmers or meat, to also just check into Weston A. Price. There are chapter leaders all around the US. And if you don't agree with all their politics, because everybody has things that they don't agree with, that's totally cool, but use it as a resource, because there are tons of farmers by state, by city, that they'll actually be able to share with you, and you can support those farmers. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Cassandra. I know we are past time, so if you need to go, we understand, but I want to give Lindsey and Matt a minute or two to add their answers if they would like. You're welcome to pass as well, but if you have any thoughts on the future of sustainability, we'd love to get those.
Well, I have a feeling Matt wants to close this out because he's got that whole metaphysical thing going. So I'm gonna say just we are losing the diversity of our gut microbiomes as well as our soil microbiomes, not just because of what we eat, but because of antibiotics and medications that decimate the gut microbiome. So, if you're one of those people that's gone from the 350 species in your gut to 100 or 60, then you need to re-diversify. However you might do that, be it through the foods you're eating, try and eat 40 different species or types of fruits and vegetables in a week, and best if you grow them yourself or get them from a local farmer and you don't wash them too well, or maybe if you're in an extreme situation, you do look into a fecal transplant from somebody who's got a diverse gut microbiome, so you can restore that, but of course with appropriate testing and supervision. So that's just the gut side of it.
All right, Matt.
Awesome. So yeah, I think that the key to making this, this future change happen is about giving people the tools for discernment so that they can make empowered decisions and they can see the world for what it is. And when we are in that state and when we can see truth and know truth, then we form ourselves and our relationships and our communities in such different ways. So yeah, I'm really excited actually about all the breakthroughs that we're having. Lindsey, I'm so excited to check out your podcast. We really truly live in a thrilling time period, despite all the noise, signal noise you were talking about. Despite all the craziness of the day, we live in a time period where amazing things are taking root, and we just really have to do the work and to spread the tools that allow other people to see how powerful and transformative these things are. Because like you said, Cassandra, these things aren't expensive, you know what I mean? And it may take a little extra time, it may take a little extra effort, it may take some listening to Lindsey's podcast to get some research in there. But when we have all of these things at our fingertips, it's like we just have to do it. We live in an incredibly blessed time. So I think I see incredible hurdles that we have to overcome, but I also see that if we follow the hope, the excitement, the passion, and the things that we're learning here, that we'll find all those solutions. Thank you so much for having us.
I love it. I love ending on we are about hope and positive change and all working together. We keep the conversations going and change continues to happen. So thank you for sharing your voices today to help start that change and roll this into a new era of soil and gut health and mental health. So thank you. On behalf of Women in Sustainability, it is our tradition to plant trees through our partnership of One Tree Planted. So each of you will have 5 trees planted in your name, and you'll receive a certificate from us with that tree information as a thank you. So thank you for being here. Thank you to everybody who came, who stayed, being a part of this conversation, who added to the chat. We really appreciate it. I'll be sending a follow-up later that'll include everything that you need to know. Stay in contact with these amazing people and learn more, and hope to see you at more events. womeninsustainability.org. Come check it out. These are the conversations we're having all the time. So thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much, Becky.
Thanks.
Thank you
Everyone.
all.
Take
Thanks,
care,
Shannon.
guys. Let's stay connected.